Hello?
Can't come for dance today.
What? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the study permit webinar, which is organized by IRCC. In this webinar today, you will be getting information about the new travel restrictions and exemptions, and also any new changes in the study permit application processing system. In the webinar today, we will be starting with a presentation where we will share with you all the relevant information. That will then be followed by a series of frequently asked questions, which we have collected based on all the queries we receive over social media and also through our email channels. And that will then be followed by a Q&A round where your queries will be answered by our study permit processing unit. So, without any further ado, I would like to now start the presentation for today. My name is Anindita Burakoha, and I'm the Outreach Officer for IRCC Delhi. And on behalf of IRCC, I welcome you once again to this webinar and hope that the information provided in the webinar is helpful for you. I would now request my colleague Shikhir Gupta, the Outreach Officer for IRCC Chandigarh, to take over the presentation. Over to you, Shikhir.
Thanks, Anandita. Very good morning, everyone. My name is Shikhir, and I'm the Outreach Officer at IRCC Chandigarh. We are very pleased to announce that as of October 20th, there will be more international students who are exempt from travel restrictions. As Canada looks at ways to safely bring in more international students, we wanted to give you the opportunity to get updated information and ask your questions. Before we begin, please note that the contents of this webinar are valid only as of today. For the most current information on IRCC processes and travel restrictions to Canada, please visit our website www.canada.ca/immigration. Some of the information in today's webinar may be the same as our previous webinars. We are hoping that some new people may have joined the webinar today to further understand the benefits of choosing to study in Canada. So now let's begin. We know that international students make significant cultural and social contributions to Canada. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, IRCC has implemented a number of temporary measures to support and reassure international students about the study permit process. Today, we will let you know what those measures are by covering topics such as exemptions to those travel restrictions, processing changes due to COVID-19, a two-step review process, authorized leave during studies, impact on the postgraduate work permit or the PGWP program, as well as the recently announced DLI list. We will also cover important topics such as who can represent you in your immigration application and what you need to know before traveling to Canada. We will end this presentation with a Q&A session. Please only type your questions in the Q&A box and we will review them after the presentation. For those of you who are considering studying in Canada, we want you to know what Canada has to offer should you choose to study at a Canadian institution. So why choose Canada? First is that many Canadian universities are highly ranked in reputed international standings. Canadian college and university diplomas are recognized around the world, and the Canadian education system encourages cross-disciplinary studies to develop transferable skills such as critical thinking, teamwork, and communications. Second is that Canada is affordable and boasts a great quality of life with low cost of living, example housing, transportation. Tuition is lower in Canada than many other countries, including the US, France, and the UK. Third is that Canada is one of the safest countries in the world with a very low crime rate. Canada is one of the most ethnically and linguistically diverse countries in the world, with over 50% of the population not speaking English as their first language. And last but not the least, if you would like to look at living in Canada after your studies, IRCC offers a postgraduate work permit to students who have obtained a diploma from a post-secondary school in Canada and are looking to gain work experience. This is an excellent way to continue to live in Canada while diversifying and developing your professional skills. Now that you're seriously looking at choosing Canada to study, or you have already done so, you need to understand that currently many people cannot travel. However, nationally, We are seeing positive changes from actions put in place to stop the spread of COVID-19. We are taking precautions, just like India, by ensuring that there is more physical distancing, mandatory mask wearing, and promoting good hygiene practices. Canada is working to slow the spread of new cases by cautiously starting to allow more people to enter Canada. So, this brings us to the new announcement as of October 20th. Canada is now allowing students to enter Canada who are destined to designated learning institutions, also known as DLIs, which have an approved COVID-19 readiness plan, which is approved by the provincial or territorial government. As a part of the DLI's approved readiness plan, they are expected to provide, number one, information to international students on health and travel requirements before they arrive in Canada. Number two, help students with their quarantine plans and provide guidance or assistance in acquiring the necessities of life, such as food and medication during their quarantine. Also, to have a readiness plan to establish protocols for the health of students in the event that there are suspected or confirmed COVID-19 cases at the school. The list of DLIs with an approved COVID-19 readiness plan is now posted on IRCC's webpage for international students affected by COVID-19 restrictions and updated regularly as provinces and territories identify additional schools. This change to travel restrictions affects all international students, regardless of where they are traveling from or when their study permit was approved. Travelers should not make any travel plans until they have met all requirements and received all necessary authorizations. With the amended travel restrictions, immediate family members may be able to accompany an international student to Canada if their reason for travel is non-optional or non-discretionary, such as getting established in Canada in support of the student study program. This could include a spouse or common law partner or a dependent. Accompanying family members of a student do require a letter of authorization to travel and must obtain that by writing to the IRCC COVID-19 exemption mailbox, which you can see on the screen. When writing to this mailbox, the applicant must explain why they feel they are exempted from travel restrictions. Through this slide, we want you to be clear that students who were approved before or after March 18th will now be allowed to travel to Canada, provided their DLI is on the list of schools with an approved COVID readiness plan. If it is so, their travel is considered essential. Please note that the March 18th important date was only applicable prior to the October 20th announcement, but is no longer relevant. If your study permit is to attend a school which is not listed on the DLI approved list, your visa will be deactivated. This means that you cannot travel to Canada at this time and you will receive a no board message from the airline. So we are aware of many service disruptions that are causing delays in the processing of our application. All applications received between now and January 31st, 2021 must be submitted online. This allows us to continually process applications across our network through work sharing caseload until operations normalize. We know that panel physicians are operating with less capacity. This means that it will take longer to obtain an appointment to complete your immigration medical exam. We also know that some businesses and schools remain closed or are operating at limited capacity. This means that it may take longer for you to obtain the supporting documents you need for your application. All of that being said, please be assured that we will not refuse any application for non-compliance or failure to submit the requested documents at this time. This means you do not have to worry about the deadline specified in the request letter sent to you. However, note that we will not be able to complete the processing of your application until all required and requested documents have been received. So it is in your favor to submit these documents to us as soon as possible. On the IRCC website, we normally publish processing times for each of our missions for all of our lines of business. As we are prioritizing applications for people who are exempt from the travel restrictions, these processing times are no longer accurate. We are gradually bringing back many of our staff while adhering to physical distancing within the office. That being said, please continue to expect delays in responding to inquiries and uploading documents to your application manually. If you need to update your application or submit a document, please use your MyCIC account to send us this information. This will automatically upload your documents and information to your application without any delay. Additionally, to increase efficiency, please only send one inquiry and wait for a response. Sending the same inquiry multiple times uses up more of our already limited resources, which could instead be used to process more cases. So we know that banks remain closed at this time. This means that there is no mechanism to submit biometrics. Currently, we have started a two-way courier fee of rupees 532 each way. We know that people are very anxious to obtain their visas. However, if you send your passport when it has not been requested, it will be returned to you unprocessed and at your own cost. Additionally, we may not be able to arrange for the return of your passport immediately, so be prepared for delays. Do not send request letters for instructions. IRCC will send instructions to you via the email provided in your application. Additionally, we will post instructions on our Facebook page and the India WAC website when it is opened up for everyone to submit their passports. We will prioritize processing based on the changes to travel restrictions. Applications destined to DLIs on the approved provinces and territories list will be prioritized for processing and will receive a final decision on their application if all required documents have been submitted. This means that if your application is approved, your visa so that you can travel to Canada under the exemptions to the current travel restrictions. If your DLI is not on the approved provinces or territories list, we will only finalize applications which result in a refusal. If you meet eligibility requirements, your application will not be approved for a visa until travel restrictions are further amended or lifted. We still have cases that are waiting approval in principle or AIP of their application. If you have decided to defer your studies or if you have switched institutions, please let us know immediately by using your MyCIC account or web form if you don't have an online account set up. The AIP process was only for applications received prior to September 15, 2020 for programs starting in 2020. For all applications received after September 15th or for any application received at any time for programs starting in 2021 or later, your application will follow the regular process, meaning that you will only find out about approval of your application once all steps are completed. This means that these cases will not receive an AIP letter. Only refusals will be finalized, and if they are missing biometrics or medicals or either one of them. AIP is essentially the eligibility assessment of your application. You can receive an AIP even if you're missing medicals or biometrics. The criteria listed on the screen are the same criteria which will be used to assess eligibility of applications who do not qualify for the two-stage AIP process. Here are the criteria. First is that you're a genuine student. This means you've language capability through the submission of your previous academic transcripts and language tests, and that you're able and qualified to complete a program of study in Canada. Second is that you've been accepted by a DLI in Canada. This means you've submitted a valid letter of acceptance. Third is that you have sufficient funds to pay for your studies, living expenses, and transportation without working in Canada. This means you've submitted financial evidence of liquid funds to cover the first year of school and demonstrated via explanation and proof of how you intend to pay for all the remaining years of studies. Please note that if your application is refused and you did not complete a biometrics enrollment, you do not need to submit a refund request for your biometric fee. We will refund these automatically. Please allow for some delay as we continue to work with limited staff. So this slide reflects the documents which are needed to receive an AIP for the SDS as well as the non-SDS stream. So first, let's look at the mandatory documents for the SDS stream. First is that you need a valid letter of acceptance. Second, you need an IELTS test result demonstrating 6 in each module. Third, you need to show a receipt or documentation that tuition has been paid for the first year, including any scholarships or grants that you may have received. Fourth, you need to provide a receipt for a GIC for 10,000 Canadian dollars. Fifth, you need to submit your most recent secondary or post-secondary school transcripts. And for Quebec-bound students, you need a CAQ. Now, for the non-SDS streams, the mandatory documents for eligibility decision are, number one, first you need to submit a valid LOA or a letter of acceptance. Second, you need to provide IELTS, TOEFL, or PTE test results. Please note that no online language test results will be accepted by IRCC. Third, you need to show liquid funds to pay for tuition, living expenses, and transportation for the first year of school, plus an explanation and evidence of how you intend to pay for all of the remaining subsequent years of school without relying on working in Canada. Fourth, you need to submit your most recent secondary or post-secondary school transcripts. And last but not the least, you need a CAQ for Quebec-bound students. Additionally, we recommend that you submit a statement of purpose. Please note that if you're unable to submit a required document, for example, upfront medicals, your application will be moved to the non-SDS stream. Admissibility assessments will only be made if you pass the eligibility assessment. Otherwise, your application will be refused if you fail eligibility. For this, you must provide biometrics, complete your immigration medical exam, answer all questions truthfully and completely. This includes declaring all previous visa refusals for all countries, providing all of a background history for the last 10 years, and being truthful about any previous arrests and criminal history. Also, always remember to submit authentic documents only. If you meet all of the admissibility assessment requirements, only students destined to schools on the approved DLI list will be finalized and issued visas. For all other applications where admissibility requirements are met and the student is destined to a school not on the approved list, their application will be on hold until the school is added to the DLI approved list, the travel restrictions are amended to extend to them, or the travel restrictions are lifted. For all applications which do not meet either eligibility or admissibility requirements of both, they will be immediately refused. Now, to comply with the study permit conditions, if your in-class courses are temporarily moved to an online-only format or suspended completely because of COVID-19, you must comply with the study permit conditions. And to do this, you must stay enrolled in your DLI and participate in your studies online if your DLI offers them. If your DLI closes permanently due to COVID-19, you have 150 days to enroll in a study program at a new DLI, change your status to worker or visitor, or leave Canada. Now, many of you will have questions about working in Canada and how the current changes may affect your opportunity to be employed. So why is the PGWP important for many students? Work experience provides a better opportunity to gain the language skills and work experience required to apply for permanent resident status in Canada. In addition, Canada has some of the highest salary for workers. Furthermore, persons with Canadian work experience are often able to demonstrate that they have the skills, knowledge, and critical thinking required to do the job. It is worth noting that you can obtain up to a 3-year PGWP. This all depends on the length of your eligible studies. You can also complete more than one program and combine their length towards your PGWP if each program is PGWP eligible and is at least 8 months in length. So new measures have been announced with respect to the PGWP. You should know this information prior to entering Canada so that you're aware of the rules. If you're unable to travel to Canada at this time due to travel restrictions, your eligible online studies will count towards your PGWP if you already have a study permit, or you have been approved for a study permit, or you applied for a study permit before beginning your program in either 2020 or winter 2021. For those who applied before September 15th for a 2020 start date, we know that some of you are still awaiting your AIP. We are working hard to process these applications. Please make sure your application is complete or it will cause further delays. This may be a bit difficult to understand, so please listen carefully. IRCC wanted to provide maximum flexibility for students to be able to obtain their PGWP if they have genuinely studied at a Canadian institution either inside or outside Canada. If you fall in any of the situations listed above, you can complete up to 100% of your program online while outside of Canada if your program is between 8 and 12 months in length and you started your program of study between May and September 2020. This essentially means that taking an entire one-year program online outside of Canada may qualify the entire program for a PGWP. In addition, you can complete up to 50% of one program online up until April 30, 2021, while outside of Canada, if you also eventually complete at least 50% of your program inside Canada. Furthermore, you can complete up to 50% of two programs online up until April 30, 2021, while outside Canada if you graduate from two different programs within 2 years of each other, and each program is at least 8 months in length, and at least one of the programs started between May and September 2020, and at least 50% of the combined programs is completed in Canada. This means that you could potentially complete a one-year program outside of Canada and then take another one-year program in Canada, and both programs will give you the maximum allowable time towards your PGWP. This section applies to students who are already in Canada. Essentially, if a student switched to part-time studies or had to take a break in studies, for example, the spring-summer semester may have been cancelled due to the pandemic, they may still continue to work on and off campus, provided that they were previously a full-time student and already authorized to work on or off campus pre-pandemic. For off-campus work, the maximum limit is still 20 hours per week during the academic session and full-time during regular academic breaks. Please note that school closure, part-time studies, or semester cancellations due to COVID-19 do not count as regularly scheduled academic break. If you decide to study and work in Canada, you may then decide to make Canada your permanent home. To begin the process of applying for permanent residence, you must submit your profile in the Express Entry online system. This will show you how many comprehensive ranking system points you have based on your education, work experience, language ability, and some other factors. On a regular basis, IRCC invites candidates with the most points in the Express Entry pool to apply for permanent residence through one of the federal economic immigration programs. Now, having a plan to quarantine is a very important piece to the travel restrictions being relaxed for international students. Please make sure that you follow your quarantine plan. Not doing so could end up costing you or others COVID-19, as well as imprisonment, removal from Canada, or a fine up to 750,000 Canadian dollars. Through this slide, we want to inform you of various fraud activities and misinformations related to immigration applications. We strongly advise you to scan the QR code on the screen while I speak for more information. First, it is very important to protect yourself. We always say that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Please never share your personal information with unauthorized strangers. Second are fraudulent websites and scams. Websites may claim to be official Government of Canada websites. They do this to trick people into paying money to them. Third are email scams. Please note that IRCC will never send you an email from a private address like Hotmail or Gmail. IRCC addresses always end in .gc, .ca, or Canada IRCC.ca. Fourth are telephone scams. Please note that IRCC will never ask you for any sort of payment by telephone. Then there are unauthorized agents. Please note that you do not have to use a consultant to submit an application. But if you choose to use one, please ensure that your representative is legally authorized to represent you. You can do this at www.canada/immigration-representative. Examples of authorized agents include members of law societies in Canada, members of Chambre de Notaire in Quebec, and members of ICCRC, a regulatory body for immigration consultants in Canada. An authorized representative can provide you with valuable tips to avoid paying too much money for an immigration service, as well as what you can expect. Any paid representative must be authorized. Unpaid representatives could be your family members or a trusted friend. On this slide, you can see the many ways to connect with us. You can see on the screen the website for IRCC, as well as the link to our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube by the name of Canada in India. Please make sure to follow us on social media for regular updates regarding the WAC two-way courier service and additions to the DLI COVID-19 Readiness Plan approved list. So this brings us to the end of the presentation. I would now request Anandita to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakir. Hope the information provided by Shakir in his presentation was helpful for you. I will now be taking up, as mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, a few frequently asked questions, which we hope will address a few more of your queries and concerns. Before I take up the frequently asked questions, I would just like to go over the current travel exemptions for international students. To be exempt from the current travel restrictions, a student must be in possession of either an approved study permit and visa or a port of entry letter of introduction, and the designated learning institution that you will be attending needs to have a COVID-19 readiness plan approved by your province or territory. Remember that you should not travel to Canada until at most 3 weeks before the start date of your course. Beginning with the questions, the most common question that we have been receiving since the announcement of the new travel exemptions is, what do the new updates in the travel restrictions mean for international students? As of October 20th, 2020, some designated learning institutes are now able to reopen to international students who aren't currently in Canada and who have a study permit or have been approved for a study permit and will be attending a designated learning institute with a COVID-19 readiness plan approved by their province or territory. As a student, your travel to Canada won't be considered essential if your study program has been cancelled or suspended, or if you're entering Canada for any other reason other than to study. The next question then comes that how do I demonstrate that my travel to Canada is essential to the airline and when I am seeking to enter Canada? The answer to this is that you will not be required to produce any other documentation to board your flight other than your valid passport, your study permit visa, and or your port of entry letter of introduction, your letter confirming the start date of your classes from your DLI, evidence of your ability to quarantine yourself for 14 days prior to studying, and evidence that you have enough money to support yourself. All other students destined to DLIs not on the list, despite having reasons for not being able to complete courses online, will not be able to travel to Canada at this time. This includes students that may have been previously in Canada and were studying there. How do I know if my school is on the approved DLI list? This list is available on the IRCC website, so you need to search for the designated learning institutions under IRCC's COVID-19 tab of our website. If your DLI is not on the list, please contact your learning institution directly to find out if they have submitted a COVID-19 readiness plan and at what stage they are at regarding the approval. The next question is regarding processing of the study permit applications. Is the two-stage processing available for winter 2021 start dates? The answer to this is no. The two-stage processing is only for classes that started in 2020. If you have already deferred your studies prior to receiving your AIP, you will fall under the regular process. This means that you will not receive an AIP letter, and you must wait for your application to be approved at its final stage when we are ready to issue you a visa. At this time, only applications to study at schools on the DLI approved list will be finalized to visa issuance. All other applicants must wait until either their school gets on the list or the travel restrictions are lifted. The next question is, I have not received an AIP and my designated learning institute is listed to be approved with a COVID-19 readiness plan. Will I now receive stage 1 AIP and then later will it be reviewed for stage 2? The answer to this is yes. You will receive an AIP letter if you submitted your application prior to September 15th and are beginning your program in 2020. In addition, we will send you a request letter to submit your biometrics and medical exam if you have not yet provided them. Otherwise, if your biometrics and medicals have already been submitted, we will assess stage 2. If you pass stage 2 and your DLI has an approved COVID-19 readiness plan, we will send you a letter to submit your passport for visa issuance. So, what documents you need to submit in order to receive an approval in principle? If you're submitting your study permit application under the student direct stream, then the documents that you need to submit are a letter of acceptance from your designated learning institute, an IELTS test result demonstrating a score of 6.0 in each of the 4 modules, a tuition fee paid for the first year, a guaranteed investment certificate or GIC for 10,000 Canadian dollars, your most recent secondary or post-secondary school transcripts, and if you are a Quebec-bound student, then you need a CAQ, more commonly known as a certificate of acceptance. If you are applying for your study permit application under the general stream, then the documents that you would require are a letter of acceptance from your DLI, IELTS, TOEFL, or PTE test results, evidence of financial ability to pay for tuition, transportation, and living expenses, your most recent secondary or post-secondary school transcripts, and in case you are a Quebec-bound student, you would require a CAQ. Note that these are the same documents required to make the eligibility assessment for cases that do not qualify under the two-stage processing. What if I am missing a document like medicals? May I still qualify for SDS? The answer to this question is no. If you are not able to submit all the documents under SDS, the officer will assess your application as a regular non-SDS application. What do I do if I cannot submit a document within the requested time frame? Upload a letter of explanation explaining why you can't submit the required documents, like your proof of enrollment, your final transcript, or any other document that you may not be able to have access to because offices are closed right now. When we start processing your application, we'll ask you for those missing documents and give you an extension to provide them if needed. We won't reject your application if you can't submit the required documents other than your letter of acceptance because of COVID-19. Note that you must provide a letter of acceptance from a DLI upfront when you apply. This is a document which is a non-negotiable. We won't process applications that are submitted without these documents. How will you know if an approval in principle or a stage 1 approval has been granted to you? A letter confirming your stage 1 approval will be sent to your online account or email, so ensure that you check both, including your junk mail folders. You may also receive an additional letter requesting you to complete the rest of your requirements, example your biometrics or your medicals, if you have not already done so, in order to be issued a study permit. For letters received by email, please expand the headers in order to ensure it is coming from IRCC. What if I'm granted an AIP? May I assume that once I complete my biometrics and medicals, I will get a student visa? The answer to this is no. An AIP is not the same as being granted a visa. The officer will still need to establish that you meet admissibility requirements. Note that a stage 2 refusal is uncommon provided that you are truthful in your application, that you have not provided any fraudulent documents, and that you comply with any additional requests immediately. The next question is, will IRCC issue any co-op work permits to students upon receiving approval of a study permit in principle or a stage 1 approval? A stage 1 eligibility approval is not a guarantee that a study permit application will be approved. As a result, a co-op work permit cannot be issued before a final decision is made on a study permit application. However, this does not prevent you from beginning your co-op program while abroad. The work permit is only required for work to be done in Canada and not outside Canada. What requirements need to be completed to receive approval for Stage 2 admissibility decision? In order to conduct this assessment, you must provide biometrics, complete your immigration medical exam, answer all questions truthfully and completely. This includes declaring all previous visa refusals for all countries, providing all background history for the last 10 years, and being truthful about any previous arrests and criminal history. You must also submit only authentic documents. The next question is, I have submitted all the required documentation for the two-stage approval. Will I receive just stage 1 or AIP approval or the stage 2 approval as well? We still want to provide assurance to students who have already started studying and passed stage 1, so they will receive an AIP letter. There is no such stage 2 approval letter. If you pass stage 2, you will not receive any correspondence until we are ready to issue you a visa. At this point, we will send you a passport request letter. This should indicate to you that your application has been approved and is ready for visa issuance. The next question is, what if my schooling starts prior to me receiving my stage 1? You can start school online prior to obtaining your AIP. If you receive AIP or your stage 1 approval after you started school, all the time will still count towards your post-graduation work permit, provided that you submitted your study permit application before you began your online studies. The next question is, will I receive a refund of my tuition fees if my application is refused when I am studying online in India with a DLI in Canada? The DLIs are responsible for setting their refund policies. We, IRCC, cannot speak to this issue, but we encourage the students to ensure that they are familiar with the various DLI policies relevant to their situation. Now, I'll be addressing a couple of questions with regard to processing times. A very common question is, when can I expect or should I expect a decision on my application? There have been many service disruptions due to COVID-19 pandemic, so our processing times are no longer accurate. IRCC is working hard towards normal service delivery standards. Applications meriting a refusal are being finalized at this time, so please check your online account or email in case you may have received a refusal letter. For applications to receive visa approval, only those destined to an approved DLI will be approved and issued visas. For all other cases, they will not be approved until either the DLI is placed on the approved provinces and territories list or the travel restrictions are amended or lifted. The next set of questions is about the recent travel amendments which have been announced and how they affect your current travel plans. The first question is, will my DLI have to provide me any supporting document even if they are on the list of provinces or territories approved institutes with a COVID-19 readiness plan? The answer to this is yes. Your DLIs are supposed to provide guidance regarding the requirements to travel and quarantine in Canada, including what to do should someone encounter or be affected with COVID-19. The next question is, should my institute provide an updated letter of acceptance stating that they are on the government's list of approved institutes? The answer to this is no. This is not a requirement since the list has been published and will be updated regularly. In case your DLI is not on the list, you may want to contact them to find out at what stage they are regarding approval. You only need to provide an updated letter of acceptance if you are deferring your studies and or are switching DLIs. The next question is, I'm eligible to travel to Canada as per the amended travel restrictions, but I have still not submitted my biometrics due to VAC closures. Is there any provision for me to travel without submitting my biometrics here in India and provide them once I land in Canada? The answer to this is no. All students must submit their biometrics in order to qualify for a visa. There are no exceptions to this rule. The next question is, my DLI is not currently on the approved list. Are there any chances of more DLIs being added? The answer to this is yes. The approved list of DLIs will be reviewed regularly and updated every 2 weeks. In order to keep yourself updated of the most recent list, please follow our IRCC website and also follow us on social media at Facebook and Twitter. And our handles for both Facebook and Twitter are at Canada in India. The next question is, my DLI is on the approved list, but my classes are still going to be online. Can I travel to Canada? The answer to this is yes. As per the new travel amendments, irrespective of the medium of classes, whether they are physical or online, students can travel to Canada as long as they have an approved study permit and their DLI is on the approved list. The next question is, will I be able to work in Canada now once I'm in the country, even if my classes are online? So the answer to this is yes. Once you land in Canada, you are eligible to work for up to 20 hours a week. You may also work outside of Canada if you choose to continue your studies online abroad. In this circumstance, IRCC cannot enforce the amount of hours you can work, although we do recommend you focus on your studies as a priority. The next set of questions will be addressing about language tests. So the first question is, may I submit a language proficiency test result that I completed online? If my school has accepted my result for my admission, is this sufficient? The answer to this is no. IRCC does not accept results from online language tests. There are no changes to the language proficiency assessment score requirement. The recommended test results are IELTS for English and TEF or TCF for French. We also accept TOEFL and PTE academic test scores. Test scores from Duolingo or any other online language test will not be accepted for any immigration application purposes, including for study permits. The next question is, what if my IELTS score is expired or is about to expire and I have still not received any decision on my application? Given the limited availability of open test centers at this time, we will accept the IELTS results as long as they were valid on the day you submitted your application. The next question is, does IRCC accept PTE language scores as proof of language ability for a study permit application? Yes, we accept PTE academic language test scores. You must submit your scores to IRCC using the PTE portal. However, when you do that, please remember not to include your username and password in your study permit application. The next set of questions refers to deferring of your studies. The first question is, my application is still pending. What happens if I defer my studies to a later semester? If you choose to defer your studies, ensure that you submit a new letter of acceptance using the web form as soon as possible so we may update your file. This web form is available on our IRCC website. I received approval for my study permit but deferred my studies. How do I extend my visa now? In this case, you will need to apply for a new study permit with updated information. Extensions of study permits are only granted to students already in Canada. The next question is, may I defer my studies after I receive an approval in principle? The answer to this is yes. However, you must submit new letter of acceptance from your DLI as soon as possible. If you change your course of study or decide to study at a different DLI, the officer may reassess your stage 1 decision. The next couple of questions are related to the post-graduation work permit. The first question is, when determining if 50% or more of a program has been completed in Canada for PGWP eligibility, how is the time calculated? So, 50% of a total program of study is calculated based on the number of courses completed in Canada. In a situation where part of a semester is completed in Canada and the other part online overseas, IRCC will consider that the semester was completed in Canada. Applicants may have to submit additional documents from the DLI. The next question is, I have already completed 50% of my program online prior to the fall semester. Will I be eligible to receive a PGWP? There are different layers to the answer to this question, so please note this carefully. You may complete 100% of your program online if your program is between 8 and 12 months in length, if you started your studies between May and September 2020, and if you finish your program by April 30th, 2021. You may complete up to 50% of your program online or until April 30th, 2021 if you complete the other 50% of your program in Canada. And you may complete up to 50% of your studies online if You'll graduate from two different eligible study programs within 2 years of each other. One of the programs started between May and September 2020, and each program is at least 8 months long, and you complete at least 50% of the combined length of the programs in Canada. The next question is, do we have to wait for AIP for courses to count towards PGWP? The time spent studying online abroad will count towards a student's PGWP after they submit a study permit application before they begin their online classes and their program of study starts or started in 2020 or January 2021. Therefore, the length of the PGWP will be considered from the date of the student's official courses start date, so long as the study permit application was submitted before the courses officially commenced. The next question is, what will happen if I switch from a full-time to part-time studies? Will this affect the duration of my PGWP? Students may put their studies on hold or become part-time students due to course cancellations as a result of public health measures at DLIs and COVID-19. For the winter, spring, and summer 2020 semesters, when a student's status changes from full-time to part-time due to changes in course delivery at a DLI, their eligibility for a post-graduation work permit will not be impacted. Starting in fall 2020, students who do not maintain a full-time status may not be eligible for the PGWP. The last set of questions is about accompanying dependents of international students. So the first question is, I submitted an application for my dependents along with my study permit application. Will they be processed at the same time? The answer to this is yes. Applications for spouse and children of prospective students will be processed at the same time. You must provide financial documentation to show how you will be able to support your dependents without working in Canada. The next question is, with the new travel amendments in place, what will be the status of spousal applications which were in process and whose spouses are now eligible to travel to Canada? IRCC is processing those applications and all applicants will receive decisions on their applications soon. However, because of service disruptions and limited staff, there is a backlog which IRCC is working through right now. So we request applicants to kindly be patient. And the last question in this category and also in the frequently asked questions section for our webinar today is, will my dependents be eligible to travel with me to Canada if they have temporary resident visas and I have a study permit? With the amended travel restrictions, immediate family members may be able to accompany an international student to Canada if their reason for travel is non-optional or non-discretionary, such as getting established in Canada in support of the principal applicant study program. This could include a spouse or common law partner, a dependent, or in the case of a minor child who will be studying in Canada, a parent or legal guardian. Like all travelers to Canada, international students and their accompanying family members will be subject to all public health measures, including the mandatory 14-day quarantine period upon arrival in Canada. To be exempt from the travel restrictions, temporary resident visa holders who are immediate family members of study permit holders require a letter of authorization from IRCC in order to travel to Canada. A request for an authorization to travel may be made by sending an email to us. I will be sharing this email address in the Q&A box right after I speak. When you write the email to us requesting for a letter of authorization, you must include the following information in the email. Documentation showing that the person who is traveling is an immediate family member of a study permit holder, why they need to travel to Canada for an essential purpose, and their file number, name, and date of birth. With that, now I come to the end of the section on frequently asked questions. We will now be taking up questions which you have been sending us in the Q&A box during the course of the webinar, and I would now request Shikhir and our study permit processing unit to take up these questions. Over to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Anandita. So hi, Alina and the rest of the team. The first question which we have is that my DLI is on the approved list. Since my medical exam is not done currently, are you processing non-SDS applications for students who are destined to DLIs on the approved list?
So yes, we are processing applications where medicals and biometrics have been approved and the DLI is on the approved list. We will be sending out passport request letters in phases, so please be patient for that. In terms of medicals, if you have received a medical request letter, you can go ahead and do your medicals at a panel physician. There are available appointments, but you may be restricted in how many are available. And I think that's all for the question. Is there?
So for those who are whose medicals have been submitted for cases where you're destined to a non-approved DLI, so whether it's SDS or non-SDS, so we're processing both types of applications. However, for students who are destined to a DLI that is not on the approved list, we will not approve your application at this time. Why? Because you're not able to travel to Canada yet. So until the travel restrictions are either amended or lifted, we will not be able to approve your applications and issue a visa until such a time that your DLI is either on that approved list or that you're able to freely travel to Canada. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is that if I defer my intake in the same college and in the same course for the latest intake, will it affect my stage 1?
Hi. So it won't necessarily affect your stage 1, but I want to underline and encourage you that if anything is changing in your situation, your intended studies, you should always keep IRCC involved in this continuing decision. There's no reason to expect small changes will change your application, but it changes from application to application. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question which we have is that can someone get a passport submission request even if he or she has not given their biometrics, given that the AIP they are destined to is on the approved list of DLIs?
Hi there. So no, we will not be approving any applications that do not have biometrics that are complete. You will only be receiving your passport request letter if your biometrics are complete, your medicals are complete, and your school is on the approved DLI list. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is that if a student had applied for fall 2020 semester and started studying online, is a new LOA required for travel in winter 2021? Kindly answer for both cases if AIP has been received or if AIP is still in process.
Hi. So in this situation, it does not necessarily matter whether you have received the AIP or not. You can do your studies at that time until your application is either approved or refused.
And to add in terms of the updated LOA, so as long as your LOA indicates that your first semester, which started in fall 2020, was online, and that your second semester will be in person, for example, for whether it's winter 2021 or later, as long as your LOA is very clear about this information, that should be sufficient for you to travel, and you do not need additional documentation from your DLI for traveling. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. So the next question is that what documents would suffice to show a quarantine plan?
So in terms of the quarantine plan, it's something that's assessed at the border by CBSA and not by us necessarily. But just think of it in a logical way. So you need to demonstrate that you have somewhere that you can live for your 2-week quarantine, how you intend on supporting yourself there financially for those 2 weeks, how you intend on having food, any medicine, and anyone else that intends on quarantining with you or being in the same place as you. So approach it in a very logical sense. What do you need to demonstrate to the border service agent that you can have a safe quarantine and that nothing will happen to you or to the individuals around you? Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is that if I submit a complete application, including my biometrics, and my application is processed in the SDS category, will it be processed in 20 days?
Hi. So right now, under the current restrictions and pressures on all parts of the immigration process, including the IRCC decision makers, processing times are not applicable. However, we will continue to strive to process your application as soon as possible if everything is there, including biometrics, medical, and a DLI that is on the list.
Additionally, so whether your application is SDS or not, we will not be able to finalize your application if your DLI is not on the approved list. So even for those SDS applications where normal processing standard is 20 days, if your DLI is not on that list, we will not be able to finalize or approve your application until you are able to travel to Canada, which means that either your DLI becomes approved or the travel restrictions are lifted altogether. Thank you.
Hi, Shakir, are you there? We're not able to hear you. Okay, I think Shakir has just gotten disconnected, so I will take up the next questions. The next question is, for the past few months, we have not heard any update on student open work permits. Is there any information that you can provide on these files? Are they being processed at this time?
So yes, so the OWPs are being processed alongside the study permits. So in the situation that you are a student and your spouse applied alongside you, we will process these files together. But if you applied for a study permit and then subsequently your spouse applied for the open work permit, it has been placed in the queue and it'll be processed when we get to it. So in the situation that you applied together, that's the right thing to do. We will process them together. Not saying that it's the wrong thing to do if you apply after the fact, but you're going to have to wait for your spouse's application to be processed when we get to it. I hope that's clear.
Thank you. The next question is coming in from a few people. So the people who have received an AIP, when can they expect to receive the passport request letters?
Hi. So there's no timelines right now with any stage of the process, but once you received your AIP, it is still dependent on meeting the other requirements we have set out for you, including that your DLI is on the list of DLIs that have a COVID readiness plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is, should I apply for a dependent visa based on my approval in principle or a stage 1 approval, or should I wait for my study permit approval and then apply for my dependent visa?
So it doesn't matter when your dependent applies for the visa. Just because you've received your AIP doesn't necessarily mean you have received your study permit in hand. So should you get refused and your dependent has now applied, they would get refused as well. So it's entirely up to you if you want to have your dependent apply now or later. But ideally, it would have been best if you both applied at the same time together. Thank you.
Okay. So the next question is coming in from a few people as well. So people who have their biometrics and medicals completed and they had submitted the full application, so will they now be getting a full approval or will they still be getting an approval in principle?
Thanks for the question. This question didn't mention that your DLI is on the list of COVID-ready DLIs, and that is still a requirement.
Yeah, it's not mentioned that.
Okay, and a reminder that AIPs are for students that applied before September 15th for a semester starting fall 2020. So if you are a January intake student, your application will be processed as normal with no AIPs involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is, if I give my biometrics in a country other than India, does my file then follow the timelines of that particular country? And also for passport submission, will I need to send it to that country or my country of residence, which is in this case, India?
So if you've submitted an application here in India and you decide to do your biometrics elsewhere, for example, in the UAE, you're going to have to do that yourself in the UAE, but we will in no way facilitate or expedite your biometrics or your application. You are still going to be processed by us here in India, and you are still going to be in the same spot that you were in our queue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is actually coming in from almost every second participant. I don't know how much you will be able to address this, but people are asking, when can we expect visa application centers to open for biometric submission?
Yes, this is a popular question. As right now, we cannot give you an exact date. We would love to, but there's a lot of things that come into this decision. One, of course, being the safety and security of the employees of the VAC and you, the applicants, who have to go in and submit your biometrics. Speaking at least for Delhi, where we're located, where one of our VACs are located, the COVID situation is not necessarily improving. We have a team in Ottawa who's monitoring this, and those of us in Delhi are also monitoring this. And when it is safe and when it's deemed safe for everyone involved, we will make sure to let our applicants know on social media and through our website. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the next question is, I have submitted my full application with biometrics and medicals. My medicals will now expire on November 4th. So will there be any extension in the medicals, or will I need to redo my medical all over again?
So we assess every application on a case-by-case basis, and when it gets to a particular application and we see that medicals are expired or about to be expired, we'll do an overview and we'll decide whether or not to extend them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is about SDS, and the person is asking, mentioning that they've submitted their file under SDS, but of course they were not able to submit their biometrics. So now in this case, will their application be moved to the general category, or will they still be processed under the SDS category?
No, their application will still be processed under the SDS category. Of course, taking note that without biometrics, their application will not be able to move forward, whether it is SDS or not SDS. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, my application has been submitted completely with biometrics and medicals, but my college is not on the approved list as of now. So in this case, will I get a passport submission request letter?
Okay, so just to reiterate, so the only individuals who will be receiving passport request letters in phases are individuals who have completed their medicals, their biometrics, and their schools are listed on the DLI approved list. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This next question is also very popular now that we are coming closer to the January 2021 intake. So people are asking if there is any last date to submit a study permit application for the January 2021 intake.
We advise to all students in the situation, just send your application as soon as possible. We process as they are received, and consider right now there's no hard rule, but submit as soon as possible if you want your application to be looked at as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is about financials with regard to this student direct stream application. So the person is asking if they need to submit a report from a chartered accountant or their income tax returns when they file their application under the student direct stream.
So for the SDS program, the requirement is to see that we have a GIC from one of the banks that are approved. However, it is up to you. You can attach additional financial documents should you feel the need to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is a letter of explanation a compulsory document when filing your study permit application?
Hi, so this is not a required document for the application, but is highly encouraged. Applications are looked at on a global level on many different factors, and one of them is if your course of study makes sense. And this letter will help you explain to the decision maker that your course of study makes sense and tells us a bit about your story as a student. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question that we have is, I have got a refusal, but I am yet to do my biometrics, and now I wish to reapply. So in this case, should I have to pay my biometric fee in my new application again?
So yes, if you've been refused and you've paid the biometrics without submitting them, we are in the process of refunding your biometric fee. So please be patient for that. It will be refunded to you eventually. Now, if you decide that you want to reapply for a second application, you're ready to do another application, you will have to resubmit your biometrics and repay a second fee. So this fee will go towards the biometrics that you will eventually do, and the fee from your first application will be refunded to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is, how many months of visa do we get if we are going for a program of 1 year and the study period is 8 months?
So normally for all programs, what we give to the students is going to be the length of their program and then plus 3 months to the end of that visa. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is, if my study permit gets refused after the second stage, is there any process of a fee refund? I understand that in this case, the person is asking about application fee refund.
Sorry, could we get clarification on that?
So the person is asking that if they have been refused after the second stage, or if they think if they will be refused after the second stage, then will there be any refund on their application fee, their study permit application fee?
No, the rules in the situation would apply as they normally do with any part of the application. If you're refused, you do not get a refund. It still requires resources on the Government of Canada's part to process. So, unfortunately, there's no refunds in this situation.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking at the questions that I can see that most of them are either repetitions or either questions that we have already addressed. So is there anything else that you would like to add from your end while I'm still sorting through the questions? But I don't think there is anything which we have not addressed yet.
Yeah, thank you, Anandita. So basically, the presentation itself and all of the FAQs have really gone over all of the nuances of our current program as it stands in this current environment. What I would recommend for all of you to do is continue to monitor our website for information on travel restrictions to Canada, as well as monitoring that DLI list for whether or not your school might be on there. And this DLI list, keep in mind, will be updated every 2 weeks. So the last list was released on October 20. So 2 weeks from October 20 is when you should be checking out if there are any updates to that list. I would also highly recommend you to keep in direct contact with your school, because they can tell you whether or not they're actually working towards getting on that list, and might be able to provide you with a timeline so you can start preparing for potentially travel to Canada sometime in the near future. So, and other than that, please continue to follow us on our social media pages, whether Facebook, Twitter, etc., for any updates to our program, as well as monitor the VFS website to see when VACs might reopen. So think of all those resources that are available to you to find out information about the current situation for traveling to Canada and getting visas for Canada. So don't just rely on emailing us for questions, because keep in mind, with our current limited resources, we are not able to get to everyone's questions in a very timely manner. So please use the resources that are available to you to find answers to your questions. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I really do hope that everyone is staying safe and keeping well. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Alina. And thank you once again, everyone, for joining us on the Study Permit webinar. As Alina mentioned, please keep following us for all latest updates and information with regard to travel exemptions. Thank you all, and hope you have a good day.